The Congo River is one of the most powerful waterways on Earth, nearly 5,000 kilometers long, second only to the Amazon in sheer volume. Across history, rivers like this have birthed empires: the Nile, the Ganges, the Mississippi. They became arteries of trade, engines of agriculture, foundations of civilization. But the Congo? Its banks remain sparsely populated. Its waters still break into isolated fragments. Its potential vast yet unrealized. So, what stopped one of the world's greatest rivers from shaping one of the world's greatest civilizations? To understand why the Congo falters while some other rivers thrive, you need to understand its geography. Rather than being one seamless flowing body of water, it's actually a series of disconnected waterways, broken apart by some of the most dangerous rapids on Earth. Try sailing from the Atlantic Ocean into the Congo River's interior. Not long after leaving the ocean, you hit the monster Livingstone Falls, 32 separate rapids, dropping 270 meters in just 350 kilometers. That's like navigating a liquid staircase. Even past those falls, you'd face the Devil's Cauldron, massive cataracts which turn the river into churning white water for hundreds of kilometers. The upper Congo? More rapids. The middle sections? Blocked by waterfalls that make navigation impossible. This makes travel over long distances a non-starter, with much of the river being fragmented into isolated sections. How do you control a vast territory when your main transportation route is broken into pieces? How do you move armies, trade, goods, or govern distant provinces across these natural barriers? You can't, which explains why the Congo Basin never developed the kind of river-based civilizations that dominated Egypt or Mesopotamia. But the rapids are just the beginning of the region's problems. Another real challenge lies in what surrounds the river, a green expanse that has resisted human settlement for millennia. The Congo Basin rainforest covers 3.7 million square kilometers, slightly larger than India. A green expanse so vast that astronauts can see it from space, and it's almost completely hostile to large-scale human settlement. Here's why. Rainforest soils are terrible for agriculture. Constant rain in the dense vegetation creates swamp-like conditions, making most agricultural production nigh on impossible. This is unlike river regions around the Ganges or the Indus, where annual floods deposit rich sediment across floodplains, followed by drier periods. This helps to create breadbaskets, feeding many millions. Then there's the disease factor. Before modern medicine, the Congo Basin was a death trap. Malaria from mosquitoes, river blindness from black flies, sleeping sickness from tsetse flies, yellow fever, Ebola in more recent times. Early European explorers called it the white man's grave for good reason, but it wasn't much kinder to indigenous populations either. Survival in this tough environment required constant vigilance against disease. But here's what's interesting. Despite all these obstacles, people did settle along the Congo. They just did it very differently than civilizations elsewhere. Before Europeans arrived, the Congo Basin was home to dozens of Bantu-speaking kingdoms and societies. These weren't primitive societies. They had sophisticated metalworking, complex political systems, and extensive trade networks that stretched across the continent. However, none of these kingdoms controlled the entire river. The rapids made that impossible. Unlike the pharaohs who could project power up and down the length of the Nile, Congo kingdoms remained localized. Each controlled parts of the river system, not the whole waterway. This had consequences. No single kingdom could dominate trade routes. No empire could unite the Congo Basin under one rule. Instead, you got a patchwork of competing societies, each adapted to their particular section of the river. And when European traders arrived in the 15th and 16th centuries, this made the Congo Basin vulnerable to outside control, which brings us to one of the darkest chapters in African history. In 1885, King Leopold II of Belgium claimed a vast portion of the region as his personal property, roughly the landmass, which now makes up the Democratic Republic of Congo, not as a Belgian country, but as his private estate. an area 76 times the size of Belgium. What followed was systematic exploitation, designed to extract maximum wealth while preventing any meaningful development. Leopold's forces built just enough infrastructure to move ivory, rubber, and other resources to the coast. It included a single railway line to bypass the Livingstone Falls, using forced labor to build it under brutal conditions. There were also a few new trading posts built along navigable sections, but there was no material improvements for the native population, no schools, hospitals, or institutions which might benefit citizens. The colonial logic was brutally simple. Cities cost money to build and maintain, extraction posts generate profit immediately. Under this system, the Congo River became a pipeline, not a foundation for civilization. Even after Belgium took control from Leopold in 1908, the extraction model persisted, and there was little improvement for the local people. The exploitation continued through forced labor, low wages, poor education, and an absence of political rights. Why? Because development and improved cities creates educated populations. Educated populations ask uncomfortable questions about who benefits from the Congo Basin's wealth. By independence in 1960, the damage was done. The Congo had been strip mined for 75 years, with almost no investment in the kind of infrastructure that supports river cities. Unfortunately, the Congo's troubles wouldn't finish here. Here's the cruel irony. The Democratic Republic of Congo sits on some of the world's richest mineral deposits: cobalt for your smartphone batteries, copper for electrical wiring, diamonds, gold, rare earth elements, the list goes on. The country should be wealthy enough to build cities anywhere it wants and develop transport networks to link them. Instead, it remains one of the poorest nations on Earth. Why? Because the extraction model never ended. For 60 years since independence, the DRC has lurched from crisis to crisis. Coups, civil wars, foreign interventions, and staggering corruption have prevented any sustained development. The result? Infrastructure that has degraded since colonial times, and the lack of cohesive direction in the country means improvement has been extremely challenging. Navigating the country in the modern era suffers the same problems as centuries before, and river travel is still blocked by the same rapids, which prevented explorers hundreds of years ago. Meanwhile, multinational corporations continue extracting the Congo's mineral wealth, using the same model Leopold pioneered: build just enough infrastructure to get resources out, invest little in permanent improvements for the country. This creates what economics call the resource curse. Some countries rich in natural resources end up poorer than countries without them. Extraction and exploitation discourages the kind of economic diversification that builds cities and improves lives. But there's another layer to this story that makes the Congo Basin's sparse development even more tragic. Hidden beneath those muddy waters lies enough energy to transform the continent. The Congo River's hydroelectric potential is almost beyond comprehension. Engineers estimate that the river system could generate over 100,000 megawatts of electricity. That's enough to power the equivalent of nearly every household in the United States. The proposed new Grand Inga Dam complex could be the largest hydroelectric project in human history, bigger than China's Three Gorges Dam. If built, it would transform the entire region. Cheap electricity would attract industry. Industry would create jobs. Jobs would build cities. The Congo River could finally become the foundation for civilization that geography denied for centuries. However, plans continuously stall, funding falls through, and instability in the nation continually leads to delays, with work thus far not commencing. The Congo Basin story is one that shows how geography, history, and politics conspire to keep some of the world's richest places in resources among the poorest. One only has to look at another great river to see how geography and politics have scuppered the Congo and its communities. The Mississippi in the United States is a trading powerhouse, with 3,730 kilometers of navigable water, taking goods and people up and down for many centuries. This has created large population centers on its banks, all which can reach each other, sparking vibrant economies and employment for local people. 500 million tons of trade moves along the Mississippi annually, valued at around $200 billion. Compare this to 10 to 20 million tons a year along the much longer Congo. Political instability in the US, compared to the Democratic Republic of Congo, means infrastructure along the Mississippi can be built, improved, and maintained properly. Large areas of good agricultural land alongside the water makes habitation not just possible, but successful. Meanwhile, the Congo River and the populations around it have been hamstrung by the layout of land they've been given and the way rulers have managed it. After examining thousands of kilometers of uninhabited riverbank, a pattern emerges. Great rivers create great cities when three conditions align. Navigability. The river must connect regions, not divide them. Agricultural surplus. Fertile floodplains that can feed large populations. Political will. Governments must invest in urban development rather than just extraction. The Nile has all three. The Mississippi has all three. The Thames, the Rhine, the Ganges, they all meet these criteria. The Congo? Well, the rapids destroyed navigability. The rainforest soils? They prevent most agricultural production. And colonial and post-colonial governments chose extraction over development. Three issues created one of the world's most sparsely settled major rivers. But this isn't just a story about the Congo. It's a blueprint for understanding why some of the world's most resource-rich regions remain underpopulated. Geography creates possibilities. History and politics determine which possibilities become reality. So, what does the future hold for the world's second most powerful river? Climate change is making the Congo Basin wetter and more unpredictable. Political instability continues across the region. Much of the global economy still treats the Congo as a source of raw materials, not a destination for investment. But there are signs of change. New Chinese-funded infrastructure projects are rebuilding some transportation links. Small-scale hydroelectric projects are bringing electricity to remote communities. Regional governments are slowly developing tourism around the river's natural beauty. Most importantly, a new generation of Congolese leaders understand that their river's sparse development isn't natural law, it's policy failure. The Congo River has spent centuries flowing past huge areas of uninhabited banks, carrying unimaginable potential towards the ocean. That doesn't have to be its future. But changing it will require confronting the same forces that have kept the world's mightiest river so underdeveloped for so long. The Congo's might could power homes for many millions of people, yet it remains a largely untapped source of energy. Will the 21st century finally conquer the river, or will the river keep conquering civilization?